All right, this is James Pelton here live with Jesse from Telos. Thank you, audience. Appreciate all you guys being here. Again, I'm always so thankful to have an audience that comes and watches AMAs, or else projects wouldn't ask me to do them. So you guys make what I do possible. If you could help out the Telos and help me out by hitting the like button, that helps YouTube know this is good content that we should show to a lot of people. And please comment. Again, you guys, some of you know I'm going to Malta next week, which is my first time to Europe. Let me know what your favorite Europe destination is, vacation destination. Go ahead and comment that. And I do that partially because I'm curious and partially because the YouTube algorithm's looking for comments. And so we want to try to, as I say, rug pull YouTube is part of what we're trying to do. So bringing the scams to YouTube. So Jesse, I'm very excited to have you, and I'm actually a tech guy kind of by in my previous life before I came onto YouTube. So always excited to hear just about new technology and what's going on. Jesse, thank you for coming on. Could you start by introducing yourself and just give a little bit of your background?
Sure. So I was part of the group. There was 130 of us from around the world decentralized launch of Telos. We spent about, say, 6 months before we launched the network. So I've been with Telos since before Telos, was live. And before that, and for a period of time while Telos was running, I was in like enterprise software, building software as a service. And I just love technology. So, getting into blockchain was a natural thing for me. And Telos was just a great fit. And I've loved everything we've got a chance to build and do at Telos is just real, cutting edge technology. Blockchain itself is a nascent technology. So it's exciting to be a part of something so early and help, drive it.
That's awesome. Yeah. And it sounds like we have similar. I came from software as a service writing. Software as a services was that's my claim to fame also. So it sounds like we kind of have similar journeys. And then, I want to welcome people who are coming on. We're talking about Europe destinations. We have Paris. Joni says stay home. So yeah, that might not be a bad idea also. So yeah, welcome everyone. We got more people hopping on. Please, again, hit the like button and comment your favorite European destination. And if it's near Malta, maybe I can visit next week. So Jesse, could you talk about what is Telos, kind of if you zoomed out to a 10,000, what did you guys set out to build?
So Telos was launched, 3 years ago, and it's a really powerful smart contract platform, half-second block times, thousands of transactions per second. So it's very powerful. Really, like I said, I came out of enterprise software, and it's something that could fit with the enterprise, right? It's meant for scaling in the future. So the smart contract platform itself is super powerful. It's a C++ based smart contract language. With at this point, where there's some new language support coming, like Rust and Golang and TypeScript actually coming soon, which is exciting. Get exposed to more developers. And so we set out to build a truly decentralized network. We did a fair launch, Satoshi style. We didn't have any ICO. We didn't have any big investors that are sitting on, half the supply. And we did like a grassroots launch, and everybody that was there to build really wanted to be there and was there for like the right reasons. And we did that in 2018, and we're building and we decided at the beginning of last year, EVM compatibility. So being able to be compatible with all the apps that run on Ethereum and all the other layer one EVMs, like, Phantom and Avalanche and all these, new layer one EVMs, we saw that the developer ecosystem there is huge, right? So beginning of last year, we started building EVM compatibility, and we launched it at the end of last year. And we have been really happy that the results have been what we wanted and expected, which is that we have a huge influx of developers and applications that now can benefit from all of our speed and all the great things we have kind of in our native layer that we call it. We differentiate native because that's what we have had forever. And then the EVM is built on top of that. So the speed and the high transaction throughput is now something that is inherited by our EVM. And so these developers that come and are used to like slower block times, like on Ethereum and things like that, are really blown away that a transaction takes half a second, and there's no congestion when the network gets busy. So that's really what, when we set out, we wanted a really strong smart contract platform that was really decentralized and truly like the people's chain. And then once we added the EVM, we've really gotten a lot more people coming in and exciting apps being built. So it's an exciting time for us.
Okay, very cool. Yeah, and one of the reasons I was excited to have you on was kind of for the educational piece too,
Right?
because I haven't had a chain on like this before. I don't believe. Do you want to talk about what an EVM is? Again, assuming most of the audience, I'm getting in the comments. Let me know if you know what an EVM is, but I'm assuming most people probably don't. Do you want to talk a little bit about what an EVM is?
Yeah, sure. So EVM stands for Ethereum Virtual Machine. The Ethereum network, when it launched, kind of invented this virtual machine, and they also invented the language Solidity. So Solidity as like a programming language isn't a language you'd go, build software as a service with or any other apps, right? Solidity is exclusively the language you would use to write smart contracts, originally just on Ethereum. And so you write a smart contract, you define your token, your NFT, or whatever your DeFi project is, right? And you build that in Solidity, and then that Solidity gets kind of turned into what they call bytecode and uploaded into the blockchain. And so the EVM is the thing that says, oh, I'm the engine, I'm the runtime, I know how to execute this Solidity compiled code. And there's just behaviors that are really critical to be the same. So when you talk about an EVM, you're basically saying we can run that Solidity code and we can behave exactly the way any other EVM is. I've talked a lot about this with different people. I like to say there's not a lot of opportunity to be creative when you're building an EVM. The goal is to behave just like the others, so that when somebody takes their application that they've built for one network and they become a multi-chain app and they have a drop down that says you could run on any of these networks, you don't want it to behave differently. So that EVM runtime is just critical that it behaves consistently as the other EVM networks. And so yeah, that's basically what an EVM is. And then that for us, as I said earlier, that's all the tools that have been built for other EVMs, whether it's Ethereum, the first and oldest, most well known, or the other ones, so MetaMask wallets and all the different tools that developers are used to that are really mature, really nice tools for developers to use and for users, right? MetaMask is like a familiar thing for so many people. And so having the opportunity for us to benefit from that open source ecosystem of really, rich, mature tools and apps is really what we get by being compatible with, EVM based technologies.
Okay, no, that was a very good explanation. So thank you for doing that. And then could you explain a little bit? I'm going to pull up your website again. Could you explain a little bit how Telos compares to some of the other chains that are out there, and why someone might want to build on Telos instead of Matic, Ethereum? And you do have kind of a good chart here that I think is helpful. But do you want to just talk through that a little bit?
Sure. Yeah. So we can run down the list here. We have very high transactions per second. So the throughput that we can achieve is significantly more than most other chains. So if you think about if there's a surge of activity like an NFT mint and everybody's trying to mint that NFT, or just a surge of traffic, people aren't going to be like waiting in line behind others. The transactions just kind of flow through, which is really, if you think about it, Web 2 to Web 3, the more mass adoption you're going to get is when it's Web 3 feels like Web 2, right? You don't have to, when you go to Gmail and you do things in Web 2, you're not necessarily waiting for the blockchain, right? So coming into Web 3, people are going to be more comfortable when it just behaves like the speed and performance of what they're familiar with. So that becomes a pretty big deal. We're not a proof of work chain, so we don't have miners. All of our validators run kind of high-end commodity servers that you can rent off different providers on the internet. You don't benefit as a validator from running 10 more of them because it's not proof of work, right? So it's a much lower footprint, carbon footprint. So when we look at the energy listed there, it's just we're definitely big on ESG and being a green blockchain. The no front running it ties back into the high transaction capacity, and we have a fixed gas price. So when you are using our network, you're paying the same gas price as everybody else. So you don't have to decide if you're going to pay more because you want to get your transaction included in the next block, right? So you think about other networks maybe have 10-second block times, and if you don't pay enough gas, you won't get included in that next block. You might wait 2 and 3 blocks. You maybe wait over a minute, right, for 5, 6, 7 blocks before gas price comes down and your transaction's included because you paid enough. When you have half-second block times and thousands of transactions a second, there's no reason for us to have a game of who's willing to pay more, because everybody will get through. Like a stadium with no lines, why would you pay to get in the back door when there's no lines at the front door, right? So that leads to no front running because we don't have any. So front running, should I explain? I think maybe some people may not know.
Yeah.
Front running is like when somebody's doing a trade, you're going to buy some token, and somebody's able to see you're going to buy that token, and they see that you paid, a certain amount of gas, and they realize they could pay more gas to get their transaction in front of yours. So they're going to buy a bunch of that token before your trade is executed. Now you pay more, and then they immediately sell afterwards. So they basically make your trade cost more, and they call it a sandwich trade because you can see the pattern of a huge buy, then somebody buys at a higher price, and then a huge sell, and that retail investor in the middle just kind of got, front ran by a bot, that, the sniper bots they call them. So because we don't have the ability for somebody to pay more to cut in line, and because we don't have a public, we don't make it public what transactions are pending, because transactions go through in less than a second anyway. There's no real list of things that are about to happen because they just happen, right? We don't have 10 seconds of things pending before they are actually in a block. So that all works together to result in front running, very fair, first in, first out processing of transactions, which doesn't just apply to DeFi, but if you think about NFT minting, you've heard stories of people going to mint NFTs. They decided they were willing to spend $1,000 in gas, hoping they got one, and it turns out they would have had to pay $1,500 in gas or something, right? Because other people paid more. So that whole situation just doesn't happen on Telos, and it's a much fairer thing for the general public to have that experience. Again, back to Web 2, you wouldn't have front running on your centralized services that people use every day. So and then the other big thing, if we've been talking about tech there, but the governance engine we have, we're really strong on-chain governance. We put everything to the token holders for a vote. We have one going on right now where we're trying to decide to change some mechanics of the network and how certain things are done. So we're really big on being truly decentralized and allowing the token holders to vote, right? The people's network. So what, like I said, when we launched the network, tokens were distributed very fairly. Those over 100 people who helped launch the network shared in 5% of the supply, not 50. And there's 100 of them that kind of all shared in that. So there's nobody sitting there with a large portion, right? So when you talk about everything's put to a vote, if somebody's got 60% of the tokens, does it really matter if you let people vote when some individual sits on the majority of the supply? So we're really, really proud on, that decentralized token distribution and the fact that everything is decided by the network, compared to, some networks that are quite the opposite.
Yes, no, that's awesome. And then can you explain a little bit, just briefly, what EOSIO is?
Yeah, so EOSIO is the C++ runtime that our native network that we call it now. That's where you build the smart contract. So that's basically the base layer software that we use to launch the network, and then we added a bunch of our customizations on top, our voting engine, a bunch of changes to how validators are selected. We have just a bunch of really cool innovations. We rotate in validators, regularly. We're testing readiness of the standbys and all sorts of really cool things that make the network really solid, right? We've not gone down in 3 years, whereas you hear some of these other networks that are coordinating with their validators, trying to pick which block they're going to relaunch the network from. We've fortunately never had to make that decision, and we have had some pretty high. I mean, I think our biggest was 38 million transactions in a day when we had some really active apps,
Wow.
kind of mining, kind of click farming type apps. That is usually what you see the the networks that have a high amount of traffic. It's usually those like Sunflower on Polygon, right, or different apps that had just people running scripts, right?
Yeah.
It's not humans making those
Right.
transactions.
Cromata
So
on AVAX.
yeah.
Yep.
Oh yeah, for sure. And so, we had that going on, 2 years ago, and hit, like I said, millions of transactions a day without any, and users didn't notice. It was us as the core team noticing this activity and going, oh, and then, but no users were complaining, right? And it was a really great feeling to know, like, okay, well, we're like, keeping an eye on it, but there's no real worry because it's not affecting anybody but the people that are paying attention to, those metrics. Um, so yeah, and the one thing that I love to say is our EVM, our Solidity runtime that executes Ethereum EVM transactions, is actually a smart contract written on our native layer. So our native layer is so powerful and capable that we were able to implement the entire EVM runtime in the C++ contracts. So we don't have two networks with a bridge. It's literally one network still. The same set of validators, the same decentralization that we talk about applies to both EVM and our native network, because the EVM is just a contract on native. So it's kind of like Inception, right? There's a blockchain in a blockchain, right? And they can interoperate a bit. So it's a pretty cool kind of hybrid, best of both worlds type situation there.
Okay, very, very cool. And I did want to scroll up here and just maybe talk through a couple of these things. So we already talked about fast and scalable, no front running. Do you want to talk about the eco-friendly? Because I know that's a big deal to a lot of people. Just that, not using a lot of energy. That's why Elon was, steering away from Bitcoin and things like that. Do you want to talk about the eco-friendly part?
Yeah, sure. So like, the ESG is environment, social, and governance, I believe, and the environment part of that, and the low carbon footprint. In fact, we're carbon negative, right? Because so we're in a very fortunate situation that each validator runs, maybe 4, 5 servers that are commodity, like, Intel servers that you could rent from dedicated server companies, right? Some people run in their own rack at a data center they lease, and some people just rent the servers. But generally speaking, each of our validators has a very low carbon footprint. So we've been able to estimate the cost of running the whole network, and the cost to offset that carbon that's produced by the power consumed through those servers it's an affordable thing, right? If we were a proof of work network with thousands and thousands of ASIC miners running, then we wouldn't be in a situation where we could go say, oh, we'll offset the carbon of this proof of work network. But for us, it's a simple decision, like, yeah, we'd gladly do carbon credits to offset the power consumed. So and that's part of where you get speed. So when you think about, like, we talk about half-second block times and thousands of transactions a second, that's something you get when you're not focused on mining, right? When you're not focused on hundreds of servers solving a math problem, you're focused on actually, the real goal, which is, an immutable ledger and producing blocks that people can use for their application. So yeah, it's a great feature, and we're fortunate that we have such a low carbon footprint, because it makes us
Okay.
very proud of that, right?
Yeah. Yeah. No, I know that's a big deal to a lot of people getting into crypto. And then you already touched on this a little bit, but maybe let's just highlight that a little bit more. Do you want to talk about what this is referring to? No gas fees on native and insignificant fees on EVM to keep spammers away?
Sure. So the native network is it's a feeless network. So it's based on staking. So if you have Telos and you stake some good amount of Telos, then that allocates the network capacity to your account. So I like to use the analogy: if you have 10 Telos and there's 100 Telos staked, and trust me, these numbers are much bigger. But for example, you staked 10 and the total staked is 100, you have 10% of the staking, and therefore you kind of are entitled to 10% of the network's capacity. So the more transactions that a user would want to do in a day, the more Telos they would need to stake. But and there's like a 3-day average where if you run out, it kind of reduces how much you've used every day over 3 days. So if you use all your capacity in 3 days, you'll have all your capacity back. And if you want to unstake, you get back your 10 Telos, right? So it's not a it's not a fee. You're not spending the Telos, but you do have to lock it up and stake it. And it's a 3-day unstaking period to get the Telos back. So in that regard, it's a feeless network, but there's still a cost to the transactions in a certain respect. And then in the EVM, there's a traditional gas fee, just like other EVMs. Again, we had a really great auditor that was insistent that our gas billing has to be identical to all the other EVMs. So at one point we were doing it a little differently, and he said, no, there's reasons you want to behave identical to them. So he eliminated that creativity that we had done in the gas billing at that point too. So we do have, but the gas price, of course, gas is how many units of gas. You can think of it like gallons, or liters of gas, and then how much do you pay for the gas? So how much you pay for the gas, that can change, as many people know, but how much gas is used for a transaction is something that is the same, on any EVM, hopefully. So our gas price is really low. And then, of course, gas price is charged in Telos. And depending on market conditions, the cost of Telos can be high or low. So, but gas generally for a simple transaction is like 0.01 Telos, which is super affordable in the grand scheme of things in crypto. So.
Okay, and then I know one problem people have been having with Solana recently is like uptime, right? Like goes down for maintenance, or I see tweets coming through, hey, we're going down for maintenance or whatever. How's your uptime been, and how do you think you compare to some of those other chains in reliability?
Yeah, well, we've never gone down. So if we talk about block production and blocks actually including transactions and being produced, that continues. We're a decentralized network, so you can access the network through various endpoints, right? So anybody can choose an endpoint. Like we also have our validators all over the world. So I'm in California. I have our servers as a validator also in California. I like to use ours because they're close to me. But somebody, say in Australia or Korea or Europe, would probably prefer to find an endpoint that's closer to them so that their access to the network is closer. So those endpoints, of course, can have issues individually, which we hear about RPC issues and things like that on all the blockchains. But generally, with a really healthy, good blockchain, if you switch to another RPC, oh, look, everything's fine, right? So that's where we're at. We've never gone down, and generally our RPC, uptime is really good as well. We've not had any terrible outages or anything like that. So we're, as far as I would say, we have a really good standing compared to, well, if you pick Solana, that's an easy one. They've been down for, I think, hours at a time. And then when we say down, we mean the network's not producing blocks, and they're trying to figure out which block they want to reset the network from. Got to coordinate all the validators to do that. Our validators meet, pretty regularly, and we're all in communication about various things at various times. But fortunately, knock on wood, we've never had to get everybody in a room to, a Zoom to like figure out how to reset the network. Right? That's not a good meeting to have.
That sounds stressful to me.
Yeah.
I wouldn't want to be a part of that either. And just want to welcome people just hopping on, whether you're watching live or the replay. Please hit the like button if you have questions that you want to ask. Let's keep it to Telos. I'm seeing a lot of questions about other projects, and maybe I'll talk about those some other time. One thing that some of the comments have made me think about is there's a lot of projects right now that are coming out with their own chains is kind of their revenue source, like Seifu and Vapor, and it just seems to be like a common thing that people are doing now. What do you think about all these new chains coming out? And I just want to know your thoughts on it.
I mean, that's what we did 3 years ago, right? But I think that there's certain chains that are coming out like for like a bespoke purpose where it's just a chain for their app, and they're not trying to be a permissionless public network for people to build apps on. That maybe makes a little bit more sense to me, like especially when we talk about some of those like click, play to earn, those types of where they need their own network, right? And then at that point, it's more of like an application that uses blockchain, not a decentralized application built on the blockchain or a public blockchain. But I think, there's a lot of, if we look at Ethereum and some of the, shortcomings, it's great technology, and it really led us to where we are today in this industry. But it's got some shortcomings, right? The gas cost, it prices out anybody when it gets busy, right? No, unless you are an Ethereum whale, you're not going to spend hundreds of dollars per transaction when the network's busy. So it's almost a victim of its own success at that point, because the cost of one ETH, and then how many people are trying to use the network, makes it just not for the everyday person to use. And so trying to go after solving those things and all the other challenges that we've seen other networks have. You mentioned Solana, shutting down under high load, just all the different networks. And then you think about, centralization problems. Like, I think on a case by case basis, if you look at these layer ones that are popping up, they're kind of trying to target and solve some of those problems. And they're not easy problems to solve. People talk about, like, I think it's the blockchain trilemma type situation, where it's like you can't solve all three. So I think a lot of them are popping up to try to solve those things, and some of them have stuck around a while. A lot of them come and go faster than you might expect. I mean, we've been up and running for 3 years without shutting down, and we've survived through a lot. So I feel like we're in a really good position to, survive through the future. We were born in a bear market, right? We were born in, we launched at the end of 2018, and like we built and grew in the middle of like that 2019, bear market, and we kept building, and people that were part of our network were there because they believed in the tech and weren't, speculating and things like that. So like, we're not worried. We did no ICO, so we did all that without like a big, treasury of money at that point. So for us, I have every bit of confidence that we're not going to like be phased by the current market or the future markets. Whereas some of these networks, they come in maybe at the top of a market trying to capitalize and just make some quick money off of a trend, and then when the money's gone, they're gone too. Things like that, And then the tech, it's hard to build technology that solves these problems, and I love talking about it. We were at Consensus in Austin, and had a lot of people come up, and they try to kind of shoot holes in things, and that's fair. That's what people should do. And that was great talking to them, because most every single one of them like tried to do that, and some of them drilled hard on a lot of angles, and some of them just had one particular angle they were focused on. But every time I just kind of gave them the answers, and they nodded and smiled instead of saying, "See, I told you, you guys have that problem." It's like, actually, no, we've addressed that. So it's great being able to stand ground against the challenges that people try to present you about your tech. So
yeah, no, that's very true. And I like what Justin said. He said, I'd be careful of many of the L1s coming out, so many money grabs. And I think that's true. The fact that you guys have been out for several years, it shows, hey, we didn't just build a chain because we wanted to grab some quick money and then we're heading out. Like, no, we've been building this. I'd also say too that it's easy to build a chain, but it's difficult to build a good chain. It's something that I have experienced. So it's very easy to just throw out a chain, fork AVAX and something like that. But it's difficult to build a good one.
And the community too. I mean, I got to shout out to our community, because we've got people that have been with us since that 2018, right? And they came in, and like you said, some chains are going after money grab. We started with no money, right? So we only we're able to build value for our token and create a market for it, because people, the community grew and people believed in what we were doing. So the community is a big part too. You could launch a chain, and you've seen these ghost chains, or these chains that kind of maybe are themselves, they have their alt accounts, and they're trying to jumpstart, if you build it they will come, the whole situation there, and be their own catalyst to their own community. But then in the end, if you don't have an organic community that is rallying behind you, because it's more than just the tech, right? And I mean, in crypto, you've anybody's seen it, like the projects with the worst tech and that are barely, barely doing what they promised somehow are incredibly successful, right? Because of the other aspects of crypto, right? The memes, the community, the armies of people that really believe in speculating on this, this token. So, but and another really good point you brought up is, fork whoever, right? So, like our EVM, that's another point that I should bring up. We built it as a smart contract on our native network. So it's like it's its own, right? So when we talk about innovation, we built that EVM. We didn't take Ethereum and just fork it and deploy it, right? Ours is like its own ground up. There's no bunch of code that we borrowed from somebody. We had to go from scratch, right? So that's a big difference compared to like some of those EVMs that it's just like, oh well, instead of running Ethereum or the Galari testnet, I'm going to run the Jesse net. It's the same software. I'm just going to launch a new one and give myself a bunch of tokens and tell people to come, maybe pay a bunch of those tokens out to other validators and try to again catalyze this success from nothing, right? So
Yeah, no, absolutely. And then I do want to talk about marketing, because yeah, that's something I realized as a software developer is I realized that it's really marketing is the key because you can build junky software and if it's marketed well, it sells. And you can build awesome technology that if it's not marketed well, it doesn't sell. And it kind of frustrated me as a tech guy because I would see, junk that made it and did well, and then good stuff that couldn't sell. So can you talk about, well, what projects are on Telos right now? And do you guys have kind of a specialty? Like AVAX kind of became known as like the silly game chain, and Binance is kind of the tokenomic chain, and Ethereum's, the NFT chain. Do you guys have kind of a specialty, and what type of projects have found their way to Telos right now?
So that's a really hard question to answer because and you're right. When you talk about marketing, you want to focus on a niche, right? Niche. You want to focus on a particular, aspect of blockchain, and with the power of our network and what you can do, like we don't want to limit ourselves just to one particular discipline of blockchain. So I mean, we do have everything you can imagine. We've got, you're going down the list here, but we have a bunch of cool NFTs, both on our native network and on our EVM. We've got a few decentralized exchanges in the EVM, some of them with lending, more coming soon, building lending. On our native network, we have, DeFi and NFTs happening. There's some really cool GameFi going on our native network. Kudo is imminently bringing their stuff to mainnet, and they've been on testnet for a while. They're a really cool kind of play to earn with this cool proof of gameplay concept where you can't really game the system as well as some other play to earns are easy to falsify your high scores. So there's that. We've got a metaverse project that won our hackathon that's super cool. We did an AR kind of game NFT hunt at Consensus where we had people going around on their mobile phone looking for NFTs in the convention center with AR kind of battles and stuff. It was super cool. So like across the board, anything you can think of, you can build, and we actually have a good sample of each of those. I would say we have a really cool social app called Apix. They're actually really well known and have some of the most transaction volume. They're on the native network, and that's like kind of like an Instagram. You can post your photos and comments, and people can like them, and you earn tokens based on how many thumbs up or likes that you get. So there's just, and I know I feel bad because I know there's probably like dozens more that I really love that I've not even managed to touch on because there's so many. But there's just a ton. Yeah.
Yeah, that's always a challenge when you're listing things off. People inevitably go, "Oh, you forgot about us." And I'm like, wasn't trying to forget anybody. So, what do you think that Telos needs to grow? Are you looking more for new developers who build their projects specifically on Telos, or are you looking for existing projects to, since you can do Solidity, kind of just also launch on Tell us, what do you guys kind of see as the marketing path going forward? What are you most looking for?
Well, and you mentioned marketing. I mean, for we've been around for 3 years, but for a long time we were just building, right? We weren't marketing tremendously well, and we just had people that liked the tech. We have apps that, we have an app called Seeds. It's been around for a long time. A ton of people know Seeds that don't even realize they're using Telos, and they were choosing Telos because of the tech and just the decentralized spirit of it. They liked that aspect, and so more recently, especially with the EVM got us a ton of attention. Like I mentioned, our auditor, they found a bug in Go Ethereum, which is the main like Ethereum node software that runs both Ethereum, BSC, and other networks that just forked the Ethereum code. And when they found that bug, it brought a lot of attention to us. And we've really cranked up our marketing team too, since, end of last year, beginning of this year, we've staffed up, grown, the team to a pretty good number, and we've really started marketing a lot more aggressively and efficiently. So I think continuing with that is going to be one big factor for us, and getting to talk to folks like yourself and your community here that's tuned in. Those are the types of things that we really want to do now that we have something of substance to talk about, because we do things differently, right? We didn't talk about everything we haven't done yet and market everything first. We really wanted to have the ground to stand on and really have the apps and the tools and everything that we have today, and then take it to market, right? As opposed to
Yeah.
selling the dream, we want to sell the product. So
Yeah.
that's
And
a big thing. Yeah.
Yeah, and I really like that, because one thing I'm noticing in the crypto ecosystem right now is that a lot of people pitch their roadmap instead of what they have built, and then people buy into the roadmap, and then it takes way longer than everybody thought for that roadmap to actually come into place. And so we end up talking about, I'm just going to use Strong Chain as an example, but they've been talking about it for 8 or 9 months. We're coming out with this new chain, and it's going to bring in all this revenue, and it's going to fix everything. And so people have been buying into that vision for, almost a year now. And we're still just waiting. And so it's refreshing to see the building first. And then, okay, now we just need to market what is there already. So that's refreshing as a marketer. I appreciate that quite a bit.
Yeah, absolutely. And we talk a lot about, like you mentioned, apps, like bring apps from other chains, and for us, we're looking for developers that want to build on, incredible technology that has the features and not all the problems that, other networks, have. So that's really a big focus. Just get developers that are, good to understand what we have to offer. And one observation, I read a really interesting Twitter thread on it maybe 4 months ago, but the apps like let's pick one like Sushi Swap. They are a swap, and they're on every network. You pick their drop down, it just keeps going, right? They're on like 30 chains, and that's great. And we're in the lists, right? You can trade on Sushi Swap on Telos, but the ones that are really going to bring the attention to your network are the ones that are focused on your network. So, you look at the Trader Joe's, the Pancake Swaps, those type of apps that are really just on one network and focused on that ecosystem, versus the Sushi Swaps with 30 in the dropdown. We really like people that are building on Telos and are focused on that one deployment of their app, not, spreading themselves across the other 29 in the dropdown. So
Yeah, no, that's very fair. So you'll take them both, but it would be nice to have people building specifically for Telos. So
yeah.
very cool. And yeah, by the way, audience, if you do have questions you want to ask, I've been neglecting the comments a little bit, but feel free to ask, and we'll ask about that. I know we just talked about not selling on the roadmap, but what is on the roadmap? What are you guys building? I'm seeing some people talking about EVM 1.5, EVM 2.0.
Yeah,
Um,
definitely. The so the EVM, like I said, is a smart contract, but the RPCs that kind of expose our smart contract to the MetaMasks and tools of the world, that's part of what EVM 1.5 and 2.0 are about. If you were to like be a developer or an application or an exchange that wants to run a node on our network, you have to set up a few moving parts because it is this hybrid network. So some of the goals of 1.5 and 2.0 are going to streamline the operations of the node, make it just easier for somebody to spin up a node that does the EVM compatibility things. There's a couple other cool features there. It's going to make things a bit faster. Like I said, the block times are a half second, but the amount of time it takes before MetaMask can see that the transaction happened is actually more like 2 or 3 seconds sometimes. So we're going to shorten that time frame, and there's some interoperability stuff that we're really excited about. So because again, the EVM is a native smart contract, we can move tokens in between the EVM and the native network. And we have 3 years of native network operation. We have a bunch of cool apps there that have tokens, and those apps are really well suited for our native network where it's feeless. But the EVM is where a lot of the DeFi happens, where the more liquid decentralized exchanges are operating. So being able to let them move their tokens into the EVM for the DeFi aspects and bring the tokens back out for like the social app or for the GameFi app, right? That interoperability is a really big thing that is going to differentiate us. Like when we talk about why build on Telos, well, look, they're not just another fork of Ethereum. They're compatible with Ethereum, but they also have all these other incredible things that they're doing. So, we on our native network have a price oracle, we have a random number oracle that is decentralized, and bringing those into the EVM so that people could do things in the EVM like lending. Lending needs a price oracle. Different games need a random number generated, in a trustless, actually random number way. So getting that interoperability with the EVM and native are big deals. We have our own explorer. Teloscan.io is our own EVM explorer, and explore.telos.net is our native explorer. So we have 2 of them. So continuing to just bring more data to the users and the explorers is a big deal. We got all sorts of stuff. We have Telos is a super exciting thing. Our staking rewards on our native network have drawn a lot of people, and it's like 10%, 13%, I think is what it's been roughly. And just as I say that, I will clarify, this isn't a Luna type thing. So when we launched the network, we set aside a large reserve of tokens, and those sat untouched for over a year. And then we did an on-chain governance vote to put those tokens to use. So we used those tokens to do some more funding towards marketing and development, and we used some of those tokens to pay out as staking rewards. So this isn't like an algorithmic inflationary thing. It's this reserve of tokens that's got a drawdown from it. And so when we added the EVM, people didn't have access to that. So people that came to us from other EVMs that just used MetaMask and EVM, addresses, they heard there were these staking rewards. They, have some Telos. They would love to earn staking rewards on it, but they had no access to it. So we're in the middle of hopefully close to the end of the audit for our Telos, which is it's an EVM staking token. And what's really cool about it is on our native network, when you stake to earn the staking rewards, you lock up the tokens and you can't use them. But on the EVM, we're using it's a new ERC 4626 token standard. It's coming out from Ethereum and the whole ecosystem, and we're using that same token standard for Telos. So you'll be able to stake Telos, you'll get back Telos, and the Telos is transferable. So there's all these like really interesting like DeFi things that could happen because you have this, it's like a yield bearing token that you'll have in the EVM that'll be, accruing, interest. It'll be going up in value as far as Telos is concerned. But you can trade it, you can lend with it, you can do things with it. So that's something a lot of people are really excited about right now is, getting Telos in the EVM so they can get access to the staking rewards if they're people that never really used our native network, or people that are really into DeFi that just want to see what, the creativity and like once this exists, what people make of it, right? That's part of the fun of the technology is having these different DeFi instruments and seeing what people come up with to do. I mean, we saw it over the past 3 years, this like lending and all the crazy stuff that we've seen on, Ethereum in terms of DeFi is just people being creative with technology. So the potential is exciting.
Yes, and very exciting for tech guys, especially. We love to just see new stuff getting built. That's one of the reasons I love doing these AMAs, is just getting to talk with new tech guys, who are doing different things. I think that's really cool. Well, let's switch over and let's talk about. So again, my audience is mostly, they want to make money, right? They want to make passive income, and so how can we get involved in Telos and make some money from it? Is the best way just buying the token? How much does a validator cost? What's the best way for people to get involved financially?
Well, you can buy it on decentralized exchanges or centralized exchanges. It's on the website. So there's that aspect. The validators it's actually a delegated proof of stake. So you have to receive votes, which is similar to like I think BSC and Tron and some other networks where you have to actually receive votes from the token holders. So there's that. You would have to earn the votes, though. It's not a proof of stake where you can buy your way in. You're going to have to go and participate in the community and earn people's attention and desire to support you as a validator. And it's gotten pretty competitive to be a validator in that regard. So I think, like you said, buying the token and using it on the network, participating in DeFi, there's definitely people trading regularly and on the EVM, arbitrage, even across different networks. There's, we were integrated with multichain.xyz, I think is their new website, formerly known as AnySwap. So we have all the AnySwap tokens bridged over. So we have Ethereum and WBTC and USDT, USDC. All those tokens can be moved from Ethereum and other networks into our EVM. And we have Rubik, which is a really great kind of bridge aggregator type thing. So Rubik's a good way. They still use like AnySwap in the background, but to move, USDC or whatever tokens you have, you can move them from Ethereum or BSC or other networks into the EVM and trade, buy NFTs or build. There's I think a big, I think for developers, there's a big opportunity to be kind of like the first in of a particular, app. I know some people that are working on like compound or curve type pools or different things that we don't have yet that are really popular elsewhere. So being the first to deploy that on Telos EVM is definitely an opportunity for developers. So just similar to the way that people have made profit in other networks, here we are in this market today compared to where we were 6 months ago. It's significantly different, but there's always opportunity. I'm personally not a trader, so I'm the one that's just heads down building. So I don't have the best advice on trading strategies, but I think there's, from what I've seen, people that know what they're doing, or they've always got a strategy, in mind, depending which way the market's going, right?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And could you talk a little bit about how revenue comes in, and does revenue coming in, like if more projects start using the Telos ecosystem, is that going to affect the token price? Can you talk a little bit just about how those work together?
Yeah, I mean the same as any other project in crypto, a lot of it's speculative, right? People speculate on a token and that's what causes people to buy it. But generally the other aspect, and a lot of times the true traders are basing their speculation on utility. So when you talk about utility, yes, you need Telos to use the EVM. You need Telos to use our native network. So if you're on the EVM, you're spending Telos on gas. So that's a cost. So the more demand there is to use the EVM, the more demand there is for Telos to cover the gas prices. And then on our native network, if the demand to use the native network, people have to lock up their Telos and stake it so they can get those feeless transactions. And then again, like we talked about the Telos staking rewards, and we have those on native, but now we're going to expose those staking rewards to EVM users, which is a much broader audience. and they, if you want to earn the, however many percent APR it is, then you need to buy the Telos and stake it. So it depends, what perspective you're taking. But in all of these, there's utility around Telos. If you want to buy NFTs, most NFT projects are selling their NFTs using Telos. Some of these GameFi apps, there's some really cool stuff that you can do and buy, in-game items or whatever the examples might be, and you need to buy those with Telos, because when you're doing everything on chain, your gateway to the network is Telos. Once you're on the network, you can exchange those tokens for other tokens, and then those tokens can be used to buy those game items, or use a DeFi app or whatever it might be. So there's a lot of reasons to want Telos besides just to sell it later for a profit.
For
There's a lot
sure.
of reasons to use it, in blockchain as a technology.
For sure. Yeah, and I never like to get into speculation because, that it is just what it's called, speculation. But do you have thoughts or predictions? Again, not financial advice or anything. We're not going to hold you to these, but just for like a market cap size that you guys are looking for or predicting, or a chain that you're kind of looking to follow in their footsteps. I was just looking at, I always, just for fun, I know this doesn't mean anything, but I always like to do market cap of,
I
and
knew
just
that was
kind of
coming.
check.
Yeah.
Yeah, I always just like to do this. Like if Telos, could get the market cap of AVAX, it'd be 114x from where it's at now, things like that. Do you have any thoughts on that, or predictions or anything?
I mean, I wish I knew the future. If I did, I'd be sitting pretty. I'd be in Malta with you next week. But yeah, like I don't have any predictions, but I do certainly feel like, um, we have every reason to survive into the next bull run, and, come out better with more people knowing who we are. We're building like crazy right now. We, we have no reason to not feel like we'll be right there next, and we're getting a lot more people know about us. So I think, my optimistic hope is that, looking at where the market is today and where some of these other projects are today, and where some of these other projects were 6 months ago, I feel like we belong alongside, like you have Cadena here, you had, Avalanche up there before. I feel like our technology is better, and as people learn who we are, and I think each cycle we go through in crypto, because I've been here for a couple now, people come and go, and they come in and they ignore certain facts, they ignore certain realities that maybe more veterans have pointed out, but they don't want to hear about. So when you talk about decentralization and uptime and all the things that we've talked about here today, some people kind of ignore those facts, right? But I think more, with each cycle, people realize more and more that decentralization is kind of important, right? Having a network that shot up is, the faster they go up, the faster they can come down, right? We saw that with Luna. So I think people will start to realize that a project like Telos, that's been around for 3 years, didn't do an ICO, is grassroots. People are here for loving the technology and believing in it. Like all the reasons that I'm happy to be here and I love talking about Telos. I think people will realize that we have those things, and that other networks don't, and that there's a reason, and that we're still here, right? So in the next cycle, Telos will still be there. These other projects, some of them won't, and people will start to recognize there's a lot to be said for that maturity, and the reason that Telos is still here, and has done innovations along the way. People are going to see new things coming out of us that are in the middle of a bear market, or that other people aren't doing. And as we continue to do that, people take notice. So
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I do want to bring up some audience questions. So yeah, audience, feel free. And if I have ignored them, ask them again, and I'll bring them up, unless we already talked about it. But I wanted to ask, Vitalik called EOSIO Ethereum on steroids. Was Telos part of what he was talking about there then, just to clarify?
yeah, so I'll touch on that. So EOSIO is that base layer software that we run. that we get a lot of our speed and power from, and it's the software that Block One built with their huge ICO, and they made it public. EOS was the first network that launched with that software, and Telos launched about 6 months later. There's other networks like Wax and Ultra and Proton, different networks that are all using um, that same technology. Like some of them are private. I mean, I know there's some private chains ran for like large financial institutions are using that software behind, private networks, right? I think it's Grant Thornton has one in Latin America, right? So there's the technology there is just, it's an incredible technology. We're the only ones that have built an EVM on top of it, which is something that really differentiates us. And we've done a lot of other really cool differentiators. But yes, that same technology that Vitalik talks about is that same steroids, we all benefit from as well. And another interesting thing is, Block One, they did that huge ICO, right? Most people have heard about it or read the article in Wired recently, that they kind of stopped supporting the software, although they still have billions of dollars that they could support it with, and they raised that money in order to build the software and maintain it. They really let down their social contract with our community and other networks like EOS and other networks that use the software. So Telos has kind of gone into I like to call it a cooperation or a co-opetition, right? So we're cooperating, although we're all competitive networks. We share a common thread of EOSAO software. So we're working together. We're iterating on it. We're building new features. There's some really cool features coming to that base layer that are going to allow us to do even more incredible things that we didn't even touch on here. But so we're working together as these networks who are built on this software because the abandoned by the creator problem. So now we've taken ownership and control of it, and more development has gone on this year than the entirety of last year and it's by people that are not at Block One. It's by people at Telos and the other networks and contracted out to different firms who, are good development engineering firms. So that is a really exciting thing. In fact, there's kind of a rebrand going on. So there'll be a new name for it soon. And we're really excited to work together and really become, if you think about like Cosmos and Polkadot and these ecosystems where it's like a network of networks and they all interoperate together, that's kind of what we are. And so being able to be really proud of our brand that we're all built on is something that all of our networks and all of our communities are excited about. So it's definitely nice that Vitalik kind of shed some light on that for us, because we all feel very strongly in agreement with what he said.
Okay, very cool. And then Lee wants to know, where does Telos see themselves 10 years from now? So if everything kind of goes according to plan, where is Telos in 10 years?
Wow. 10 years is about 150 years in blockchain.
Yeah, maybe let's do 2 years.
But I mean, I think if we look at the track record and the trends that have been happening and what Telos has done, in the 3 years since we launched, I would guess that our Telos mainnet will still be just going strong with, some really mature, awesome applications. I would imagine that there's, some roll-ups and some layer twos, like some app chains, so to speak, that kind of have popped up that are kind of built on top of our mainnet, like rolling up to the mainnet or whatever, that are for specific purposes, like I mentioned earlier, for like a play to earn or a real niche purpose. And I think that there's probably going to be some really awesome innovation that's happened that happened first on Telos, like our EVM and its power and the hybrid aspects of things, and some of the GameFi stuff, some of the things I can't talk about, like some of the partners that I know we're working with and kind of know what they're doing or trying to do, like some of them pull off what their goals are, then I think we'll have seen this happen first on Telos, being, not just one, but many things that happen first on Telos that are incredible. We'll look back on them and say, oh, remember when that the first time that somebody did that? Now everybody's, jumped on that bandwagon. That's that's kind of how I see it.
Okay, very cool. Yeah, and it's very good technology. And so yeah, the question is just marketing. And so that's what we're doing here, right? Is getting the word out there like, hey, there's this amazing technology. Come check it out. I love what you said too. I think my favorite thing, because one of my passions is bringing normal people into crypto. If you're in crypto, you are not a normal person. You are in the minority. And so one thing I want to do is bring normal people into crypto. So I like how you guys are trying to bridge Web 2.0 and 3.0 by, getting that transaction time done. When people click a button in Web 2.0, they expect it to be done when they click it.
Yeah.
And so we need to, streamline some of those experiences for people. So I really like that you said that. And also, I looked it up, and pronunciation can be niche or niche. So
Okay.
both work. Both are
So
acceptable.
I think I've hit both of them every time I
Yeah,
say the word.
I
Right?
do the same thing. It's like words that you see all the time on the screen when you go to Sam. You're like, wait a second, I don't know that I know how to say that. So, well, very cool. Well, if anybody has any last minute questions, ask them real quick here. Please hit like again, whether you're watching this live or the replay. Hit like on your way out. But Jesse, do you have any final words? We've been going for an hour here, so I think we'll wrap up. But do you have any final words that you want to say either to your community or to potential developers who are watching who are thinking about this? Oh, maybe we should build on Telos. Any final words?
I mean, I think the one thing I would say is just, if you have any interest at all, you can come join, our community on Telegram or Discord, and just, try things out. Come say hi, come look at some of the apps. If you get your hands on some Telos, go try it out on the EVM. In fact, if there's a developer out there, you can try our testnet. We have a faucet. You can come ask in any of our Telegram channels, and I or somebody else will quickly answer your questions. And just come try it. Like I said, at Consensus, I loved a lot of the things I did there, but one of my favorites was just tell people open up MetaMask. I'd send them some Telos. I'd send them to an exchange. I said do a swap, and their eyes would get big because it would be faster than anything they've ever experienced, right? And more affordable too. So, try it. You'll like it. That's, I guess, what I have to say.
Very, very cool. Those are great words. Yeah, and I posted links to the Telegram, links to the Discord, links to KuCoin, where you can go ahead and buy, links to the website. So yeah, and go follow them on Twitter too. I'll post that link as well. So yeah, definitely a lot of potential here. So, well, yeah, thank you, audience. I appreciate you guys coming. I always thank the audience first because, again, couldn't do this unless audience came to watch.
Thank you, audience. Me too.
Yep. Yep. I guarantee you, Jesse's not here just to talk to me. He's here for you guys. So appreciate you guys. And Jesse, thanks for taking the time out of your day to come and talk through this and talk through the technology. So I think it's been educational and been really good for us to hear. So thank you so much for your time.
Yeah. Thank you, James.
All right. Well, everybody, go buy some Telos. One thing, this might be potentially, I have those DCA bots on KuCoin. That I just buy a certain amount of. Kadena is one of them that I have a lot of, or Bitcoin. But this could be one that you go add to a DCA bot on KuCoin, where you just say, hey, I'm going to buy, maybe if it's only even $10 a day or something like that. I'm going to buy $10 a day of Telos. And if in 5 years it ends up at a 30, a top 30 project, you'll probably, 300x your money. Not financial advice. We don't know what's going to happen, but there's potential for things like that to happen getting in early like this. So, yep. Thank you, everybody. And again, thanks, Jesse. And I hope everybody has a good rest of your day.